brief recording of this because it's new for some people. So when you go home tonight, you can look on YouTube. I'll tell you how to find all that. If you don't understand this, then kind of watch it again. I'll post it before I leave. Okay? So we're going to use chips to talk about negatives and positives. And our reds are going to represent our positives, and our blacks are going to represent our negatives. Oh, that's just the reverse of what I was. Watch this. Okay. Because the term in the red usually means in debt. Okay. So last year I used balances a lot. Raise your hand if you remember balances. I don't know if everybody's used balances, but with the balances, before we do this problem up here, you know, when you add one negative to one positive, you always end up with a 0, right? So if I had a positive on a balance and a negative on a balance, imagine that these are like a balance. You know, we'll just pretend. So let's do this. Just like you have the little balance plates or whatever. See if I can get it to be connected without falling apart. See if it's connected. Oh, of course not. So let's just group this. So we want to make sure the balance is not lopsided, right? So if you have a positive and a negative in the balance, it's even, all right? If you had two negatives in the balance, it would be more tipped this way, right? More negative. That's the concept you want to think, right? So if I wanted to balance that out, I would have to add a positive, and it would tip back, okay? That's the kind of idea with negatives and positives. One negative plus one positive always makes a 0. So that's a simple thing to do in math, but the harder part about this is using the chip. So it's actually a brain exercise. It's not just about getting the answer, it's about exercising your brain in a way that's a little, you know, taxing sometimes. So the beginning part of your book on page 18, I think, has some really simple problems. I just want to make sure that they really are simple, okay? So it says use this chipboard as the starting value for each part. And then on number 1, it asks you to write a number sentence for the board as is. So like when I look at this, I would count all the blacks. So how many blacks are here?
8.
So it would be 8 because it's positive. And then I'm adding in, think of this as adding in all of these reds.
And 12.
So it would be adding in a negative 10. And then because every one of these positives and negatives make a 0, you would eventually, you know, have only stuff left over here. So you have a negative 2. So that's the concept. Okay. Raise your hand if that's an easy concept for you. Okay, Quinn, move over a seat. All the way. Move next chair. Okay. Easy concept. They always start with easy concepts. Then they get a little bit harder. And then it says start with the original board again. So we go back to the original board. Okay, and do the next problem. So what's number 2 say? Yeah, Nick.
Add 5 black chips.
Okay, so for number 2, it's start with the original board. So it's 8 plus negative 10. That's the original board. And then you're going to add 5 black chips. Right? So we already know that the original board, if we bring in 5 black chips, you know, we're not going to do every single one of these. We already know, since this one had 2 reds left, we're really have a negative 2 here plus 5 black chips, right? So we're not going to animate each one. You guys can tell me the answer to that, which is 3. So the goal of this is just to write the number sentence that you see here, okay? And to understand how the chips are used. Raise your hand if you understand those. So remember, this book is also used for the beginning 7th grade, but you guys do a lot of the harder problems, so we're going to pass on through this to the next page, because that you get, We're not gonna go through all the easier problems unless there's a quick question, Sammy. Never mind. What's more challenging is looking at this. This is actually a little more challenging. It's a little weirder. Better for an advanced class. And then doing the ACE problems. Better for an advanced class. So this one, you have to figure out what goes in the missing boxes. So Naya, you were kind of starting this. So what's your number sentence for the first one?
It was 3 minus 5 equals -2. Or
Yeah, they're on colors.
Yeah, I forget your name. Rami.
3 plus -5.
Not quite. Your name? Maggie.
-3 plus 5.
-3 plus 5.
That's not how it is.
Wait, yeah.
The colors are switched.
Yeah.
The colors aren't red in the book?
Yeah.
So we're looking at the chart at the top of page 19 now.
I'm on 24.
That's okay. I should have clarified, so this is page 19, because it's really easy for me to make a mistake, so I'm glad that you guys are looking. What'd you get?
2.
Is equal to 2. Okay, so you would fill in the chart, so that's easy. They're not all easy though. Okay, they get a little bit harder. Tell me your name. Rachel. So here's what I think. You have questions in the homework related to this. This is a really good thing to record in your notes right now. I'm going to post it on YouTube if you just want to listen. Your homework comes from the A section. This is not your homework. This is an example.
Yeah.
But in our homework, there's a graph like that. Are we supposed to write it out?
Yes, you're going to write it out. Okay, so they start out really easy, but it actually gets harder.
Yeah, I did mine on page 24.
Okay, so, but we're talking about this, right? And so let's make sure we understand. Try not to rush ahead because you may then end up having to go backwards. So, like on the next one, if you think about, I'm just going to grab, go to 2 pages here for a minute and grab a couple of these here. And so I can use them on this page. Okay, so on this next one, it's saying you're going to start with 2 reds and a black. So we're starting with that, and we're subtracting 3 reds. I don't have 3 reds here to take away. Do you remember how to do this, Catherine?
Don't you add a black and a red?
Yes. So should I move these so it's not so confusing that this is not part of the problem? Okay, so if you want to take 3 reds away from here, and you don't have 3 reds, you have to go back to that balance concept. Adding a 0, what's the value of this? How much does this equal, really? -1, right?
Reds are negative.
Yes. It equals -1. Does that make sense? So what is the value of this? Now, when we look at the whole thing, what's the value of this? -1, right? Okay? So I can subtract 3 now, can't I? So I can pull the 3 out, and I'm left with 2. So my number sentence will start with this, which is, well, what is it actually? Like -2 plus 1 minus
3,
-3 equals 2. That make sense? That's still not the hard one, but you have to understand that one to do the next 2. Well, to do the last one in particular, I should say. To do the last one. So do you need me to do that again? Okay, Cody?
Well, I just have a question about the homework. So you just want us to put endless and number sense?
I want you to copy the chart and fill it in.
red, the black and red, then should we get color?
You could do B, 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 R. Yeah, you don't have to get colors. You could if you want.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one's not as hard. Let's have somebody new do the next one. Okay, Isaiah.
Well, I just have a question.
Yeah,
Do you have to do that?
that's what you have to do. You have to think chips. Okay.
What if you're thinking that you're just gonna
What if I walked around next week and I had you demonstrate for a little test? You have to be able to do it.
Yeah, I'd be able to do it, just not.
So on the homework, I want you to do it. Okay, so practice thinking that way. Okay, Ben.
Alright, so, the way you do this is you need to subtract the amount that you end with from the amount that you start with. Oh, do you want the answer?
I want you to, can we go like, can you tell me how you would fill this in so we can understand a little bit more about what you're saying? Like, what would you put right here?
Right there, I would put add 4 positives.
Okay, that's one thing you could do, right? Add 4. Okay, so your equation over here would be,
Negative 6
uh-huh,
plus 4
right.
equals negative 2.
Easy one, right? That's one correct thing. What else could we have done there? What's another thing? Yes.
Negative 6
Mm-hmm.
minus negative 4.
Minus negative 4 equals negative 2. So then you would have subtract negative 4, right? Okay, so the last one is what is hard. Those are kind of the small steps, the baby steps. But this one's kind of weird. How can I subtract 3 reds and end up with all blacks? Isabella. Start with 1 black. Okay. So you could put a B in, right? In your homework. Cody, I think you guys might want to see this. So I'm going to start with 1 black. Okay, so if we were going to model this, and I started with 1 black, Isabella, how could I take away 3 reds? Yeah, but how do I model it? What if I came around and asked you to model it? How can I take 3 reds away? AJ.
You add zeros.
You add zeros. So what's the value of this now?
No, 1.
It's still 1, right? Can I take 3 reds away? Add another 0. Right. Because I only can take 2 reds away now. Can I take 3 reds away now? Yeah, I can take 3 reds away. Ah! Undo that. I'm going to take 3 reds away. And so I'm... Oh, I lost one of my dots in that little mess. There we go. So I can take these guys away now. And I'm left with 4. So we really only started with 1 black. And we ended up with 4 blacks. That's why you have to understand the chips. If you don't understand the chips, that's going to be really hard to do. So good job, Isabella. So we're going to start with a 1, right? And we're going to subtract negative 3. I know you guys can do this piece a lot. I want to see, if I walk around the room, that you could do that animation we just did. Does that make sense? So you're going to watch that. I'll record this, I'm going to pause it, and then we'll just do... Kathy, do you have a question?
Yeah, could you do, like, for the start with, couldn't you just, like, start with 4 black dots and 3 red dots, like, and that also?
You want to start with the most minimal thing, right? You want this to be like a great question. You want this over here, these to just have 2 numbers on the left-hand side of the equals. Okay? All right. So your homework model.